Hello friends, and welcome to part 7 of the Dynamic Window Blueprint tutorial series. In this video we're going to create the framework that will allow us to easily move and resize our window. For this we're going to go back where we started, which is our hover target. And we're going to go into our graph. And we're going to override 3 more functions. This time we're going to do OnMouseDown, OnMouseMove, and OnMouseUp. Now if we try to compile now, it's going to give us some errors about the return value of the 3 functions that we just overrode. Basically, Unreal Engine just needs to know whether or not we handled the event. So we're going to drag off of the return value and type handled and just basically return handled. And we'll do that for all 3 of these. And the reason it needs to know this is it may not just be our window that gets a mouse button event. Like if we have two windows over top of each other, both windows can receive the mouse event. But if we say that we handled it, the engine is not going to notify any other windows above or below us. Now, we really don't have any other windows that we're worried about, so we're just going to return handled for now. And if we compile and save, we should not have any errors this time. Alright, so let's start on the mouse button down function. Now, for moving and resizing the window, all we really care about is the left mouse button. We don't actually want to handle any events if it's the right mouse button. So the way we can check for this is if we drag off our mouse event and choose Get Effecting Button. And then if we drag off the return value, hit the equal sign. We want to see if it's equal to something. And if you click this little keypad, it's going to wait for you to press a key on the keyboard or click a mouse button. We're going to click the left mouse button, and it just pre-populates that for you. It just saves you from having to dig through the tree to find it. And we'll clean this up just a tad. Move this over. And we're going to add a branch. And hook it into the loop. Alright, so if it's the left mouse button, we are going to want to call an event dispatcher to notify the parent like we did before. So let's go ahead and add a new event dispatcher. And we'll just call it on left mouse button down. Now, we're going to want to pass the mouse coordinates, which we're going to get here in a moment. Let's go ahead and add an input parameter, which is going to be a vector 2D. And we're going to call it mouse position. Now, generally when you create a event dispatcher, especially if you add inputs, you're going to want to compile and then save before you drag it onto the event graph. I'm going to try it not compiling and see if I can get it to do it. If I grab and drag and call and I hook it up, get this out of the way. And if we compile, you see it kicks out an error, could not find pin for the parameter mouse position, which we just created. So generally it's a good idea to compile if you add parameters to a event dispatcher before you drag it onto the graph. Now, it's not terrible. I mean, I can just right click this and hit refresh nodes. sometimes it'll break any connections to it, but now if I compile, it works perfectly fine. So, two ways to do it, doesn't really matter. And while we're doing this, let's go ahead and just add another one. On left mouse button move. This also will have an input parameter that is a vector 2D called mouse position. And we'll add a third one, on left mouse button up. Add an input parameter, vector 2D called mouse position. And we'll go ahead and compile and save before we start to use them so we don't run into any issues. All right. The next thing we want to do is pass mouse coordinates into our event dispatcher. And if we drag off of mouse event, we can call get screen space position. Now these are the coordinates from the top left corner of the screen. So even if you have like a window, if you're running in windowed mode and it's sitting over here kind of towards the center, the top left corner of the viewport is like right here, but the coordinates that you receive are going to be from the top left corner of the screen. So we're going to actually have to make some changes because our viewport might be scaled. In fact, most of the time it's going to be scaled unless it's running full screen. So what we want to do is we can right click and go get viewport scale. And this gives us the scale of the viewport as it is when this event is fired. And we're actually going to divide 1 divided by the viewport scale. So I'm just going to grab our division and I'm going to move this down to the bottom and set the top to 1. So 1 over the viewport scale. And this gives us a ratio that we want to multiply by our screen space position. We're going to multiply, and we're going to split this pin here so that we're multiplying the viewport scale by the X and the Y. And then we can connect this up to our mouse position. So the X coordinate of the screen space position is multiplied by the scale and passed on. And same thing with the Y position. It's multiplied by the same scale and passed on. And that'll go to whatever the parent is that's listening to the event dispatcher. All right, the last thing we need to do here is capture the mouse. And we can actually drag off of handled, capture mouse. And we'll hook that up as our return value. Basically, the way it works is this. By default, when you click down on the mouse and you start to drag, the engine is going to start sending mouse move events until we stop moving the mouse, or until we let go of the mouse, or until we are no longer over the hover target that was sending us the messages. But when we tell the engine that we want to capture the mouse, by setting it as the return value, the engine will continue to generate the messages and send them to us, even if we're no longer over the hover target that is generating them. And in our case, we definitely want those messages because we're going to be dragging the mouse and then updating the position and size to catch up to it. Most of the time, the mouse is going to get dragged outside of the hover target before the update occurs. So we just want to make sure we receive all the messages. Alright, let's just clean this up real quick. And the mouse up is going to be pretty easy because we can copy pretty much everything here. Go to up and move this out of the way and paste, and we'll go ahead and hook it up same as we had it before. And let's delete the left mouse button down event dispatcher, and we'll grab our left mouse button up event dispatcher and hook it up, add our mouse coordinates. Now, since we are letting go of the mouse, we actually want to not capture it, but we want to release it. So drag off a handled, release, capture, release mouse capture. And that will be our return value. We can get rid of this and go ahead and hook it up. Now, we also want to make sure that we're not executing any of this if we're not already capturing the mouse. So I'm going to scoot this back, and there's a function called has capture, has mouse capture. And this gives us a Boolean value. We're just going to branch off of this and hook it up as the first thing. And if we have the capture, then we'll execute the rest of this code. And actually, that's not entirely true. We are going to scoot this here. We're going to back this up. Delete this branch. We're going to do and, A-N-D. And join these together. Connect it here. And then just reconnect this like we had it before. So if we have the mouse capture and the left mouse button is clicked, or let go in this case, then we'll execute our code and notify the parent. And that's really all we need for the mouse button down and mouse button up. So let's compile and save. And we can go ahead and move on to the mouse move. Make some space. Just hold down Alt and break the connection. Now let's save us some work. Let's go back to OnMouseButton up. And we're going to copy all of this code, just so we don't have to redo it. Paste it here. Now, when the mouse is moving, we don't care about left mouse button because we've already captured it, and now we're receiving move events, assuming we've captured it. So we're going to get rid of this, and this, and this. And we'll go ahead and add a branch and connect it up. And connect our mouse event to get screen space. Alright, so if we've captured the mouse, we are going to go ahead and call our event dispatcher for mouse move. Pass in our coordinates. And connect to the output. And we're just going to return handled. And that should be it. Let's go ahead and compile and save. And then let's switch to our title, our window title, because it has a hover target. And down here we can see our event dispatchers. Left mouse button down, move, and up. Let's go ahead and add those. And what we'll do is we'll do a print string, and let's do drag off of the string and append. We'll type for the A value mouse down space hyphen space, and then we'll drag in our mouse position. It'll convert it for us. And let's copy this. We'll hook it up to our move. Oops. And we'll change this to mouse move. And then paste it one more time. We'll call this one mouse up. And if we compile and save and go ahead and press play, now if we click, you get a mouse down. If we let go, you get a mouse up. And notice it's got the coordinates there. If I click and drag and let go, so we're getting our mouse move events. So we're good to go there. So I'm going to escape out. And I think we can wrap up part 7 of this series here. And with that now out of the way, we can finally get this window moving in the very next video. See you then.